It's time to escape the cage. I'm your host, Ronnie, usually accompanied by my co-host, the MADD Mad Matt, but I believe he's face deep in some titties, so I'm hosting solo today. This is episode 6, if you can believe it, that we made it to the 6th episode. If you want to tell us how bad we suck, you can send us a tweet at escapethecage31 or send us an email, escapethecagepodcast@gmail.com. Today's show is brought to you by the IWC, because why the fuck not? And we don't have any sponsors yet. I'm going to talk to you about some WWE and some NXT, as well as Lucha Underground, maybe a little bit of Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Definitely no TNA, because I don't want to put you to sleep. The best thing that promotion has, actually, is its knockouts. By the way, did you see Roadblock? Because if you didn't, then in my opinion, you missed WWE's best show so far this year. You can clearly tell, at least in my opinion, that the show was not produced by Vince, but most likely by Triple H, due to the wrestlers having a more kickback vibe, and actually the quality of the matches were top-notch. Due to the fans being engaged, you had some false finishes, and it really led to, at least me as a longtime fan, being into the matches like I would be for like an NXT show or a New Japan Pro Wrestling event, or even Ring of Honor. Unlike most Raw or SmackDown shows, it was clear that WWE can actually still put on a good, I would say, quote, wrestling show, but they're obviously embarrassingly lacking in the entertainment, quote, aspect of their flagship shows. With that being said, the top match for me at Roadblock was the NXT tag title match between the Revival, Dash and Dawson, versus Enzo and Big Cass. I just felt that the matches that the NXT wrestlers put together are more polished, more sound, more tight-looking matches. If you watch the matches from the main roster, I don't know if it's because they tour so often or because they don't focus on the basics, and so they kind of get used to what they're doing. But lately I've been seeing that a lot of the main roster matches have been a little sloppy. If you just saw this past Monday on Raw, Neville busted his ankle. He's actually got a broken ankle now, so that's going to put him out for a little bit. It's just a good example of the sloppiness of the main roster wrestlers. And by the way, Carmella looked fucking gorgeous. I think I actually just came twice during just the entrance alone. And then with her dancing around and everything, it kind of gives it more of a, like, damn, like, I mean, this girl's walking around. She got a killer body. Her attitude is great. So I just think that whole threesome there has really got something going. I'm actually kind of afraid, to be honest with you, of the rumors of them going to the main roster, because I just feel that with besides Kevin Owens, that, you know, it just could hurt their gimmick, hurt their momentum that they've been building as far as NXT goes. I don't know if it's the main roster fans, but they just don't seem to be picking up on the gimmicks. As you saw, Tyler Breeze is basically a jobber now. Then after that match, I was really into the WWE Championship match between Dean Ambrose and Triple H. I thought Triple H, being almost 50, showed that he could still go. He can still get in there and wrestle. I like that they broke it down and made it more of a wrestling match and not just a spotty knockdown, you know, very simple match. They actually went to an old school style wrestling, which I really was a fan of. Ambrose proved that he should definitely be in the main event spot. But it makes me wonder how the fans are going to react, you know, once we get down to WrestleMania, because basically they got Roman set up to win that title. Dean Ambrose, is right now the hop of the two, and Roman Reigns is just tanking even further. If you saw on Raw when he came out yesterday, the fans just booed him out of the building. They didn't even give him a chance. Usually when a wrestler is gone, or if they get away from an injury, they'll usually come back with a little bit of a pop or a little bit of a renewed energy. It was kind of almost that the WWE fans were just kind of like, nah, motherfucker, like, stay away, you know, because can you really imagine the biggest WrestleMania in history, which is what they're claiming this one's going to be, ending with just a complete sea of boos. You're gonna have the whole of Texas AT&T Stadium just booing Roman Reigns out of the building. I mean, you would think that the Dallas Cowboys were there, but no, it's just going to be Roman Reigns winning the title. Speaking of which, the Raw ratings were down again, another point or a half a point, or point, however the fuck you want to look at it. Last week, Raw scored a 3.5, and this week it got a 3.4. That's including with Triple H wrestling Dolph Ziggler and the appearances of Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon, and The Undertaker in the final segment. Raw has continually lost viewers. Throughout the month of April, they lost an average of 700,000 viewers, even with The Undertaker's appearances. Their highest rating for February was a 3.8, and now coming into March, they're at a 3.4. So this is, in my opinion, at least from my recent memory, this is probably the first time in history that WWE is having their ratings going down and interest in the product dropping leading into WrestleMania. Usually coming into WrestleMania season, they see a huge spike in merchandise sales and ratings and just general interest in the product. Because even if you're not a year-long WWE fan or really a WWE fan at all, usually everyone will still check in for WrestleMania because that's the World Series, that's the Super Bowl, that's the Stanley Cup all mixed into one in the world of wrestling. I mean, you're not anybody unless you've wrestled at WrestleMania. So with that being said, what does this really say about the current product? What does it say about Vince? What does it say about the company in general? Because I know Vince just had an interview recently with the Orlando Sentinel where he, quote, said, "The organization that we built and the depth and talent from a corporate standpoint, I'll put us up against Disney and I'll put us up against anybody." I don't know if this is just a work. I hope it's a work, because if this is what Vince really believes, then he should not only be removed from his company, they should seriously start questioning his just mental stability in general. Maybe Vince McMahon himself is suffering from CTE, maybe too many steroids, maybe too much Coke. If you guys don't realize, Vince McMahon was a huge Coke user back in the day, a huge steroid user. I don't know if he still is. So, and on top of that, Raw losing 700,000 viewers, Vince McMahon himself is not a fan of the NXT product. It is being said that he just sees NXT as a touring brand and nothing that would lead to a main brand, almost like a third, like Raw, SmackDown, and then NXT. Vince still sees NXT as strictly developmental. You could see, like, with characters like Tyler Breeze, who had come up to the main roster, who they had their character over in the NXT world, but then once they hit the main roster, the fans didn't really pick up on it too well, and definitely Vince McMahon himself didn't pick up on it as well. So on one hand, you've got WrestleMania, probably the least hype for WrestleMania I've seen in years, dropping. You've got they're losing about 700,000 viewers, or they lost 700,000 viewers in the month of April. You have less interest going into WrestleMania, yet NXT has got a spike in interest. People are enjoying it. People are into the product. People are invested in the characters, which is another issue I've had with WWE, is they don't create characters you can invest in anymore because they're constantly telling you how fake it all fucking is. But with Vince not seeing this, I'm almost thinking if there should be, I don't know, like a coup d'etat, or where the wrestlers kind of do a walkout, or the corporate offices do some type of a walkout, because this isn't good. This isn't looking like Vince has it together really on any aspect. You can hate the Mr. McMahon character all day. You can not like Vince as a person. You can listen to what other wrestlers have said. But, you know, as a wrestling fan, just, you know, do it yourself. Take a couple steps back. Evaluate the product on an objective level. Look at the product in the past. Look at these statements. Look at the evidence. And I'm pretty sure that you'll see what I'm coming to, and you'll see where I'm getting at. That as a wrestling fan, you really want to see this succeed. I would have loved to see WrestleMania 32 personally as the biggest WrestleMania of all time. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen that way. I just don't personally see that. As of right now, the card for WrestleMania is Roman Reigns versus Triple H for the heavyweight title, Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell match, Dean Ambrose versus Brock Lesnar in a street fight. The match I'm looking forward to the most, actually, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte for the Divas title. Then they just added the Usos versus the Dudley Boys, Kalisto versus Ryback for the United States title. Then, see, this is another thing that I'm kind of confused on. They've got the New Day taking on the League of Nations for the tag team titles at WrestleMania. And I know that WWE tries to say that there's no heels and faces or no kayfabe anymore, but I think WWE has done a really poor job with establishing the New Day as faces. They still have them cutting heel promos at house shows. I believe they even cut a heel promo just recently on either Raw or SmackDown where they told the fans to shut up, or they didn't care what the fans were interested in. And yet they're wanting to put them in, I'm assuming, as the face team against the League of Nations at WrestleMania. The League of Nations is probably the most boring wrestlers, with the exception of Rusev, because I'm high on Rusev. But you've got Sheamus, who's a bore. Alberto Del Rio, I was so happy when he left. He just needs to go back. He just needs to go back away. And then King Barrett, who, I'm sorry, that dude just has no talent. People can say whatever they want about what they've seen him in the Indies or his NXT. That dude has just been nothing but shit since he entered onto the main roster. There's literally not one thing he's done that's made me be interested in him at all. I even forget that he's there half the time. I couldn't even remember his name 3 seconds ago. So, and then you're going to have the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. So there's your card for WrestleMania. I don't know about you, but that doesn't look like the biggest WrestleMania in history. I'm not going to say that it's a shitty WrestleMania, because it's definitely got the certain aspects that the fans are going to be looking for. But, I mean, if you look at just their top card right here, you've got Roman Reigns versus Triple H. Triple H isn't an active wrestler. Shane McMahon versus Undertaker. Neither Shane nor Undertaker are active wrestlers. And as a matter of fact, Shane has been looking very sloppy the past couple weeks on Raw. Then you've got Dean Ambrose versus Brock Lesnar. Again, Brock Lesnar is a part-time wrestler. He's not a full-time wrestler. Sasha Banks. So in your top 1, 2, 3 matches, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of those wrestlers are not currently active wrestlers, but are actually part-time wrestlers. So that, to me, this is just really showing that they're digging wherever they can. They're grabbing whatever they can to try to get this WrestleMania card over. Which, I mean, I can't blame them, because with the injuries and with the level of disinterest in the product, there's really not much else they can do as far as that goes. So then the other thing I wanted to talk about is Lucha Underground. So I've been watching the second season. When the first season came out, I had started watching it, but then our cable provider had quit holding the El Rey network, so I forgot about it. I didn't keep up on it. But then all of a sudden we got El Rey Network back around the time when the second season started to get going. And man, I have to tell you, Lucha Underground, in my opinion, is the perfect template, if you will, for the modern way pro wrestling should be presented nowadays. It's very innovative, very stylish. I really like the way that they have the ring set up in like kind of an underground warehousey type way. I really like how they do the backstage segments, how it's more of a TV show or like a movie, and it's really set up like cinematic style. I think that's the perfect approach for the modern wrestling fan to bring some fresh interest back in wrestling. Because let's be honest, we know that wrestling is staged. We know that the characters aren't who they really are in real life. I guess if anything, if they were more who they were really like in real life, we'd probably connect with them easier. But the fact is that that's just not the case so much. So I think that if you're not going to do that, and if you're not going to take that approach anymore, stop playing the fans like morons. Stop playing them like idiots, and let's get to producing some real good shit here. And I think that that's what Lucha Underground is doing. Partly because maybe it's Robert Rodriguez's channel, it's Robert Rodriguez's vision. Maybe he doesn't have the fear or the desire to compete with Vince McMahon, which could be the golden ticket as far as making his company successful. Because I know recently WWE reached out to Lucha Underground for wrestlers to put on in that new global cruiserweight series that's going to be going on. And Lucha Underground flat out denied. They didn't want anything to do with it. And I thought that was amazing. Because here you have a company that's doing things fresh, innovative, and really makes me excited as a wrestling fan. And WWE came right away to try to wipe it away. They tried to take it away, tried to put it under, and tried to kill it. Because that's what they do. And I'm really glad that Lucha Underground stood up against them, and basically gave McMahon the double fuck you, and said, no, we're keeping our talent, we're keeping our product, and we're putting it on the way we want to do it. I know that TNA or Impact, whatever it's called, had done something, I don't want to say similar, but they tried to go for more of a cinematic approach backstage. It doesn't come off as well, especially now that they don't have their budget, that their budget got wiped out. I actually don't keep up too much on TNA or whatever. I like the presentation that they're bringing on, but you can tell that it's a shell of what it used to be, and that it's just money keeping them going. It's not revenue streams. They're not slanging merchandise like crazy. They're not selling out venues. It's just basically that Dixie Carter has probably a boatload of money shoved up her twat, and she just fucking pussy farts it out each time TNA needs something going, or each time TNA needs to build itself out of a hole. I do like, however, the addition of Billy Corgan as their head writer and their head creative guy. That, to me, as a wrestling fan, kind of came out of nowhere. I remember I had heard rumblings and rumors that Billy Corgan was a huge pro wrestling fan, but I had no idea that he was a wrestling fan of this caliber and on this level. So I think that was really cool. I was hoping maybe he would have brought him new freshness to the product, or maybe brought something special to the product. But if he has, that's not standing out, at least to me. Write me. Hit me up on Twitter at escapethecage31. Send me an email, escapethecagepodcast@gmail.com. Give me some info on TNA. Tell me what I should be watching, if I'm missing something. If you know of like a specific show or a special event that I can go back to of theirs recently and kind of, that you think stands out, let me know. Tell me what's up. I'm not perfect. I'm just another jackass with a mic, just giving you my opinion. And I want to hear yours. I want to hear what you got. Tell me the show sucks. Tell me the show's cool. Whatever. Escape the Cage 31 on Twitter. escapethecagepodcast@gmail.com. The last thing I was going to talk about today is and this kind of goes along with the Lucha Underground way of running their company and the way they produce their show, is the WWE's use of inside terms on the WWE Network shows. On the recent Big Show interview, he had actually flat out said that using terms like Hogan put him over, and that Hogan put the strap on him, gave him the title. Personally, for me, I'm not an idiot. I obviously know that that's how the fucking business works, but it's kind of like a television show in the sense, do you constantly need to be reminded that the show is fake or that the show is not real? Or is it the fact that you're not reminded of those aspects that enables you to interact with the show and engage in the actual premise of the show? Another thing is, I know on Edge and Christian's show, I had seen a preview for their show, and they had used the words, I had to put Gilbert over once. And like two things with this. Number one, I don't care what WWE says. The casual wrestling fan doesn't know what these terms are. They have no idea what these terms are. So you're speaking a foreign language to them. B, I don't think your hardcore fans and your insider fans are going to watch the Edge and Christian show. I mean, this is obviously a personal bias because I think it looks kind of dumb, but I'll be honest, I haven't given it a fair shot. Maybe I should. But how do you feel about that? Like, how do you personally, as a WWE fan or as a wrestling fan in general, how do you feel about the lack of line drawn between kayfabe and reality? Do you feel that the wrestlers should hold the kayfabe like they used to, or do you think it should be more black and white? Like, hey, this is an actor. Like, maybe even, you know, give the fucking real names of the wrestlers at the end of the show in a credit segment. Or do you think that there should be, like I said, like a drawn line? I personally, in my opinion, I feel that there should be a drawn line between kayfabe and reality. I don't think that the average fan or the general fans, especially the kids, should know or be constantly reminded that what they're watching is staged and entertainment. And I don't like to use the F word here, so I'm not going to, which is fake. But anyway, I feel that it helps the fans, it helps the families, and it helps especially the kids engage more because they believe that that's who that person is. And obviously not along the lines of insulting our intelligence. Like, I know Dean Ambrose doesn't live in a mental asylum, okay? And you don't need to be that strict about it, but I don't want to see pictures of Dean Ambrose on date nights with Renee Young on social media, because those are the elements that kind of screw with the character and kind of make the character seem a little bit more like roadrunner-y, cartoonish. And I think that actually goes along the lines with a lot of the other wrestlers as well. And I actually talked about this previously on another episode, that, you know, the things that made Hulk Hogan special is because you believe that that was Hulk Hogan, brother. The same thing with Stone Cold Steve Austin. You love Stone Cold Steve Austin because he's a beer-drinking, badass motherfucker. You know, you don't like Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't think the Stone Cold character wouldn't have gone over as much if, like, they had been constantly showing clips of him as stunning Steve Austin while they were trying to get over the Stone Cold character. Obviously, at the time, you didn't have the internet and you didn't have as much media out there, which also contributes to the lack of kayfabe nowadays. But I mean, I'm being serious. I do not believe that the Stone Cold character would have gone over as well if they were constantly showing footage of him as stunning Steve Austin or rolling the camera with his hands and kicking it with Brian Pillman in the WCW days. What helped that character get over is WWE allowed the fans to let their guard down and invest in the character without that fear of that character turning back on them in a negative way, which I believe happens nowadays a lot and a lot more frequently, because it just seems that just as the fans start getting behind someone, just as they start really connecting with that person, WWE throws a swerve. And WWE swerves the audience, and then they change the character, or they'll change the gimmick, or they'll change the thing around. Ryback is a perfect example of this. Ryback was a guy who had started as, you know, the big muscle-bound, you know, jock. I believe it was Skip Sheffield or whatever the fuck his name was in NXT. Wore a cowboy hat and shit. So then he comes over to WWE and they repackage him as Ryback, which, you know, once he first came out, he was getting the Goldberg chants. Goldberg. And you could tell that he wasn't going anywhere. And I think he was eventually getting Gilbert chants. He got injured, went away for a while. When he came back with a huge pop, and the fans seemed to have a renewed interest in him. This is, I believe, when he started talking about The Secret, and he was doing I read The Secret and doing that whole gimmick. And the fans really got behind him, and they really started going for him, and they really started pushing him. Same thing. I mean, he, even to the point where his ring gear was colorful, it was unique. I always have loved the spray painted look on the trunks and everything, like what Rick Rude and the Ultimate Warrior used to do. So he had his look going. He eventually started interacting with the fans. His entrance became fan interactive, where he would come out, he'd take the headband, the beanie off, he'd give it to a fan, rip the necklace off, give it to a fan. And he would have been perfect for the kids. I mean, when John Cena's sitting on his ass at home, or fucking Nikki Bella until she gets a wrinkle on her face, Ryback would have been that dude. He would have been that guy. They could go do the Make-A-Wishes. They could connect with the kids, and even the adults liked him. So what does WWE do in their infinite wisdom? They strip off the unique tights. They strip away the fan interaction. They stick some black trunks on him, and they got him going out there. And now he's right back where he was with the Gilbert and the Goldberg chants. And the fans have just lost. They don't even boo him out of heel booing. They are not even interested anymore. I mean, the fans could just care less. Similar to what they did to the United States title. They put the United States title on John Cena. They had John Cena doing the open challenges on Raw. It made the United States title mean something again, made it important, made it a top contender. And then what do? Cena gets hurt. They slap the belt on Del Rio, and now it's on Kalisto, and now the belt is again meaningless. Again, meaningless. This is where a lot of my frustration lies, because you want to invest. And that's kind of been, I guess, my topic of the show and my topic in general, is that please, WWE, allow us to invest, allow us to love the sport again, or whatever you want to call it, entertainment, sport. I look at it as a sport because these guys are out there busting their ass. The injuries are real. The risk is real. So this is a fucking sport. They're not out there in a director's chair taking, this is real shit here. Okay. So please, let's figure this shit out and let's get this going, because I'm sorry, Vince, if you think that you're going to compete with Disney or anything just because you've got some likes on Facebook or just because you've got people hitting up your network, your fans aren't interested in your product. They're losing interest in your product. And leading into your biggest show of the year, WrestleMania, your ratings are dropping week by week by week by week. And even with characters like The Undertaker, Triple H, Shane McMahon, everyone, Brock Lesnar, your ratings are still dropping week by week by week. Meanwhile, NXT is flourishing, and yet Vince McMahon hates NXT, doesn't see NXT as a product. So I don't know. I wanted to come full circle on that because I think that that's a real strong issue that's going on right now. This has been Escape the Cage. I'm about out of here. It's only a half-hour show because I'm rolling solo today. I'll probably be doing some more solo shows. The Mad Matt will be back with me soon. Just got to get his face out of them titties and out of that pussy. So I'll be back with you guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hit me up on Twitter and tell me how much the show sucked at escapethecage31, or shoot me an email, escapethecagepodcast@gmail.com. And enjoy the week and fuck off.